After three pretty underwhelming weeks to start the season, Tarik Cohen busted out. In my PPR league I play in, I think he had 31. He rushed 13 times for 53, which is nice, a little over 4 yards a clip. But he made his real damage in the passing game. He had, I want to say, 8 targets, caught 7 of them, 121 yards and a touchdown, and was just used everywhere. And how about this? He outsnapped Jordan Howard, I want to say 20-11.
Absolutely. So, yeah, out-touching Jordan Howard by a fairly significant margin.
Oh, yeah, out-touching, right.
Yeah, and out-snapping him, too, though. Was in more often. And the offense, I mean, what makes me real nervous for Jordan Howard, we're going to talk about later, this offense clearly exploded. Now, I know a lot of this has to do with the Bucs having maybe the worst pass defense in the league, if not history. They are just absolutely abysmal. So that is important to note. Still, though, this is finally that movable chess piece, that high-usage weapon that we were projecting all offseason. This was finally the Matt Nagy offense that we were so excited about, and so excited about seeing Tarik Cohen see 15 to 20 touches. And look what he did when he finally got that. He hadn't seen any more than 8 touches a game leading up into this, and he finally gets that workload ratcheted up and absolutely explodes for those numbers you said. Looked great while doing it. Just clearly brought a lot more to the table than an 11-carry, 25-yard Jordan Howard. That's got to be very concerning. We're going to get to him later. But ultimately, Cohen, you got to feel a lot better about this. They have a bye in week 5, but the way that whole team played, the versatility that he brought to the table, the receiving ability, and how much better this offense was because of it, you got to be feeling much, much better about Cohen moving forward and a whole lot more scared about Jordan Howard.
The Bears managed to throw up 48 points. You say, wow, the Chicago Bears put up 48. I mean, that's crazy enough. You figure Jordan Howard probably a huge part of that. Well, you would be wrong. I think he had 2.5 fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
And, as we talked about, out-snapped, out-touched by Tarik Cohen, like a lot. 11 rushes, 25 yards. Pretty gross stat line, right?
Pretty horrendous stat line. This is 3 straight weeks now that he has not topped 2.5 yards per carry, looking very much like a plotter in this action. So maybe that's what led to this switch, is Matt Nagy was just finally fed up that this guy has not been producing on the volume that he's seeing. And it's got to be nerve-wracking, especially when you look at this type of game script. These are the games when you drafted Jordan Howard that you were thinking he would dominate. The game script is huge lead, you bleed that clock, and you ride out Jordan Howard to the end of the game. He didn't get any volume, even though they were up by over 30 points for more than 30 minutes of this game. Jordan Howard still saw no volume. So even in a perfect game script, this guy faded into nothing. Again, has been very underwhelming on the field over these last few weeks. You have to be very nervous as an owner. The fact that Cohen severely outplayed him, and the fact that this offense looked so much better with that added dynamic, versatile threat in there. You got to be very nervous about Howard. Now, I don't think I'd go and just sell him right now because obviously this is rock bottom. I don't think he has weeks this bad moving forward. But if somebody was still on the name value and trying to buy, I'm not opposed to moving him by any chance. Maybe toss out an owner, a bid to his owner if they're on bye week and you're in a good spot and he's like willing to just shell him out for garbage. Okay, maybe he can explode down the stretch and find, the overall offensive explosion isn't a bad thing for him necessarily, but the fact that it happened with Tarik Cohen is bad, and moving forward, it could totally be Cohen's backfield. So Howard definitely a big stock arrow down on that big board.
Anyway, Nagy's back. Mitch Trubisky and Taylor Gabriel. Gina Thomas talked up Taylor Gabriel to us years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
They lit it up amidst the Bears' offensive explosion, and we should put as a disclaimer, except Jordan Howard.
Yep.
All
Absolutely.
Right, talk to us.
Absolutely. 48 points. You got to be pumped about that. Mitch Trubisky, 5 touchdowns in the first half. We raved all summer about how this guy has a strong arm, and Matt Nagy loves to go deep. Alex Smith leading the league in deep yardage last year, deep passer rating, all that good stuff. We thought it was going to be a perfect fit. And then Mitch Trubisky came and shit his pants and only averaged 5.5 yards per attempt for those first 3 weeks. Granted, they had a couple tough matchups. This is a very complex scheme. So if there's one takeaway from these early few weeks that I want to make sure I have out there is these new offenses, there's always going to be growing pains. And I think, we kind of overreact at times saying Matt Nagy's going to blow it up and Matt LaFleur with the Titans. It takes a couple weeks for these players to really get up to game speed and get into that flow. But we saw it with LaFleur and Mariota this week. We saw it with Nagy too. So after that kind of growing pain period, maybe this is the kind of launching point. Again, we talked about how bad the Bucs defense is. That played a huge role in this. There's no doubt about it. It's not like Mitch Trubisky's going to suddenly be this 5-6 touchdown guy week in and week out. But I do think that the chemistry is finally brewing. they're finally starting to connect. And Taylor Gabriel, as you mentioned, Gina Thompson had him on our radar for so long. Very dangerous screen receiver. That's how he scored both of his touchdowns in close. You got to love that usage. He's seen 7 targets every single week. That was kind of the only negative about Taylor Gabriel in his Atlanta thing, is you never knew when he was going to see the usage. But it's been there every single week for him so far in Chicago. With this offense finally clicking and more red zone chances, he's one of my favorite waiver wire guys to look at this week.